The first refugee vessel arrived in silence above Earth, its engines burning weakly and its hull scarred by plasma fire. And within hours, thousands more emerged from shattered jump corridors across the solar system, carrying the remnants of civilizations that had once ruled vast sectors of the galaxy: the proud Varelian trade clans, the scholar priests of Illis, the insectoid colonies of Trask, and countless others who had been driven from their worlds by the Dominion, a merciless empire that consumed entire star systems beneath endless war fleets. And for the first time in centuries, those alien nations bowed their heads not before conquerors, but before humanity, because Earth was the only power that had never fallen, the only civilization the Dominion had never dared invade directly. And when the leaders of the refugee armada stood before the United Nations Assembly expecting suspicion, negotiations, or refusal, humanity answered with something the galaxy had long forgotten: compassion. Earth opened its orbital docks, converted lunar shipyards into refugee sanctuaries, and transformed entire Martian cities into protected settlements, while human cargo fleets crossed known space delivering food, medicine, and atmospheric generators to dying populations. Yet as billions found safety under the Terran banner, the Dominion interpreted humanity's mercy as weakness, and their emperor broadcast a declaration across every occupied world, demanding that Earth surrender the refugees or face annihilation. But humanity did not answer with speeches, because while diplomats evacuated frightened civilians into underground shelters beneath Earth and the colonies, something ancient awakened across the solar system, as dormant shipyards beneath the ice of Europa ignited for the first time in decades. Hidden factories on Titan began forging weapons at terrifying speed, and deep within the asteroid belt, the vast armored hulls of the Terran defense fleets powered on one by one like sleeping giants opening their eyes. Then the Dominion crossed into human territory with a force large enough to erase empires, thousands of warships darkening the void around Jupiter, their commanders certain that humanity would surrender once confronted with overwhelming strength. But instead, every refugee watching from Earth's cities witnessed a sight that would become legend across the stars. Because from behind the moon emerged the first fleet, steel-gray battleships stretching for thousands of kilometers in disciplined formation, followed by carrier groups from Mars, destroyer walls from Saturn, and silent black dreadnoughts older than some civilizations emerging from classified deep space stations, until the darkness between planets itself seemed filled with human warships, and at the center of them all stood the flagship Guardian of Sol, a vessel so massive its shadow swallowed entire Dominion cruisers. And when the Dominion demanded surrender one final time, the human fleet admiral simply replied, "You came for those under our protection. That was your mistake." Before the void erupted into war, the first exchange shattered moons. Human rail cannons punched through enemy formations at relativistic speeds. Carrier swarms flooded space with autonomous fighters, and hidden Terran stealth frigates appeared inside Dominion lines like ghosts, crippling command ships before vanishing again. While on every refugee world, terrified survivors watched human soldiers fight not for conquest, not for territory, but for people who were not even their own species. And slowly the impossible became reality as the Dominion advance stalled, then broke, then collapsed entirely beneath the relentless fury of Earth's fleets. Because humanity fought with a terrifying kind of determination the galaxy had never understood. The belief that once someone was given shelter, they became family and humanity would burn entire star empires before allowing family to be harmed. The final battle came near the ruins of the Varelian homeworld, where the Dominion Emperor himself led his remaining armada, believing one decisive strike could still break humanity's resolve. But instead he witnessed every Terran fleet in known space arrive together in perfect formation around the refugee convoys. Millions of human voices broadcasting across open channels in every language of the galaxy, with one unified message: "You are under Earth's protection." And then the combined might of humanity descended upon the Dominion, with such overwhelming force that entire enemy formations vanished in nuclear fire and collapsing gravity fields, until at last the Emperor's flagship drifted powerless among the wreckage, and the greatest empire in galactic history surrendered not to fear, but to the realization that humanity's kindness was inseparable from its wrath. Because Earth had never become strong to dominate the stars, it had become strong so that no desperate soul seeking shelter would ever stand alone again. And long after the war ended, The refugees who once arrived trembling and homeless would tell their children of the day humanity opened its gates to the galaxy and answered a plea for shelter, not with words, but with fleets and unbreakable protection. The surrender of the Dominion should have ended the war, yet across the fractured galaxy, silence brought new fears, because entire systems once controlled by the fallen empire collapsed into chaos overnight as pirate kingdoms. Rogue admirals and warlords rose from the ruins to prey upon weakened refugee convoys, and once again frightened civilizations turned their eyes toward Earth, not as conquerors begging for mercy this time, but as desperate allies praying humanity would not abandon them now that the greater enemy had fallen. But humanity had already changed the course of galactic history, and there would be no retreat back behind the safety of Sol, because the Terran Council announced the creation of the Protectorate Initiative, a vast coalition dedicated to defending displaced worlds and rebuilding shattered civilizations under Earth's protection. And soon human engineers crossed the stars constructing orbital shields around ruined colonies, while Terran medical fleets cured plagues that had spread unchecked during the Dominion occupation. Yet even as hope slowly returned, deep within the uncharted regions beyond Dominion space something ancient was watching, because the Dominion itself had not been the true monster feared by the oldest civilizations. It had merely been a shield against something far worse lurking in the darkness between galaxies. And the moment the Dominion collapsed, that ancient enemy awakened. The first warning came from a mining outpost near the Perseus Expanse where an entire moon vanished without distress signals, leaving behind only twisted debris and impossible gravitational scars. Then another colony disappeared and another, until human reconnaissance fleets finally encountered the threat directly. A colossal biomechanical armada unlike anything ever recorded. Ships the size of continents moving in absolute silence through space while consuming stars themselves for fuel, and the few surviving probes transmitted horrifying images before going dark. But the most terrifying discovery came from recovered Dominion archives revealing why the Empire had expanded with such brutality for centuries. They had been desperately building military strength to survive the return of the Void Swarm, an ancient species that had exterminated civilizations long before humanity discovered fire. Panic spread across the galaxy faster than any invasion, because now there was no Dominion left to resist the coming storm. Only Earth and the fragile alliance humanity had forged from refugees and survivors. And for the first time, even hardened Terran admirals felt fear, as projections showed the swarm outnumbered every known fleet combined thousands of times over. Yet while alien governments prepared evacuation plans and spoke of abandoning entire sectors, humanity once again refused surrender. Shipyards across Sol expanded beyond anything previously imagined. Mercury became a forge world producing warships day and night. The rings of Saturn transformed into gigantic defense platforms, and hidden beneath Antarctica, humanity unveiled weapons forbidden even during the Dominion War. Ancient prototypes powered by captured singularities and experimental artificial intelligences designed solely for extinction-level warfare, while millions of refugees volunteered beside humans to defend the very civilization that had once saved them, and soon mixed fleets carrying dozens of species fought beneath Terran command. Not because humanity demanded loyalty, but because Earth had earned it. Swarm arrived in full force at the edge of civilized space, and entire star systems burned within hours as black organic vessels devoured planets whole. Yet every world under Terran protection fought back with impossible fury, because humanity had taught the galaxy something the Dominion never understood. That courage spreads faster than fear. At the Battle of Epsilon Reach, a single human dreadnought held a jump corridor against over 10,000 swarm vessels, long enough for refugee fleets to escape, its captain broadcasting calmly to terrified civilians even as his ship broke apart around him. And when the reactor finally detonated, it destroyed half the enemy fleet in a miniature artificial supernova, visible across 3 systems, turning the crew into legends overnight. While on distant colony worlds, ordinary humans and aliens fought side by side in burning streets, refusing to surrender civilians, even when escape became impossible. Slowly, the galaxy realized humanity's greatest weapon had never been their fleets or technology, but their refusal to abandon others no matter the cost. And that belief began transforming frightened survivors into an unstoppable united civilization. Because every species protected by Earth now fought as fiercely as humans themselves, until at last the final defensive line formed around Sol. Thousands upon thousands of warships stretching from Earth to the orbit of Neptune as the Void Swarm descended upon humanity's homeworld. in numbers that blotted out the stars. And before the battle began, the Secretary General of Earth transmitted a message heard across the entire galaxy. Long ago, you asked humanity for shelter. Today, we ask you to stand with us. This is our home, and we will defend it together. Then every allied fleet answered in unison, engines igniting like a second galaxy of fire surrounding Earth, and the greatest battle in history began.